Welcome, friends, and thank you for joining this webinar from TENS, the Episcopal Network for Stewardship. Today, we're going to be talking about attracting and retaining younger members, our Millennial and Gen Z, and preparing the way for Gen Alpha, and getting ready for them to show up because they're coming. So let's talk about that today. I am joining you from my living room in San Francisco, California, where it's just about 9 in the morning on Saturday. Wherever you're joining us from, thank you for being here today, morning or afternoon or evening. I'm happy to have you. We've got folks registered all the way from Hawaii to London. So, welcome. Glad you're here. Let's go over today's learning objectives. We're going to be talking today about the different generations that are present and active and giving in our congregation, giving of their time, talent, and treasure. And we're going to be talking about different ways to approach them. It's important for us to understand that every generation approaches their relationship with giving and church a little differently. We're going to go over some big, broad generalizations. And so please be kind with that. We're not speaking about every specific case, but we're talking about some general statistics for different generations today. And then we're going to zero in on our younger generations, and we're going to talk about what we need to know about who they are and how they're interacting with us, and then what we can do to be attractive and to retain their interest and to create disciples out of our youngest members and ultimately lifelong givers of their time, talent, and treasure. So that's a big list of objectives today, but we're going to cover it, I'm confident. Let's start by looking at the different generations that are alive and well these days in our congregations. And what's important to note is that through the miracle of modern science, we have 5 generations of people all alive at once, all active in the church, all able to contribute. And this is a beautiful thing. We have not seen this particular piece of demographic before. And so this is important for us to note because they're all responding to the messages that we send about how to engage with us and what the mission of the church is in slightly different ways, colored from their perspective. So let's talk a little bit about them and how they might approach some of the things that we're talking about in church. We're going to start with our mature generation, folks born before 1945. Um, and again, I'm quoting some statistics. These are general and average numbers. They may be different in your community based on who you are, where you are, what things are going on in your town. But
Iris. Yeah.
here we go. Put yourself on mute, please. That would be really helpful. We'll just that way. I'm the only voice for now. Thank you. So our oldest members, by and large, are active and busy and going to church. 60% of them donate to church. If they are members of church, they are donating likely at this point out of retirement assets. And 51% of our most mature members are still volunteering with church. Maybe they're on the hospitality committee or the welcoming committee or the altar guild. Whatever they're doing great things for us and rolling up their sleeves and still showing us the way to be active, engaged members of a congregation. And this is really important for us to know. They are most interested in supporting the church as the church. The institution matters to them. That's not to say this is for every single one of them, but in general, um, they understand the language of the church institution. It's been here for them. It continues to be here for them, and they have some loyalty, some love about the church, and some reason that they want to give from that. It's a duty, it's an obligation, it's a responsibility. It's also a joy. It's a part of life. for our most mature members. So they're likely taking um, they're likely consuming a lot of pastoral care. This isn't necessarily true, but this is a good thing. They are both engaged in offering pastoral care because they are wise people who have experienced a lot of life. They're those kinds of people that will seek you out and say, "How are you doing?" and "What's going on?" and maybe offer a kind word. They're also maybe needing to be visited in a hospital or in their retirement facility included because maybe they're not making it to church every Sunday. So we need to make some extra efforts to reach out to them. Um, these folks are ready to make, they're probably making an annual gift. It might not be as robust as it was when they were in their income earning years because now they're giving from retirement assets. Although they could have continued their giving at a level, but likely it's coming from retirement assets. And we should understand that their annual gift probably can't or won't grow. It's probably where it is. They are very interested in making capital improvements. If they can, and if they have some appreciated stock or securities or other retirement assets that they can share with the church, they understand that and they've seen many capital campaigns in their church over their years and want to participate in them. So don't exclude them from your capital campaign. And if you haven't asked these folks for a planned gift, now is absolutely the time to do that before they can no longer make their own decisions about their giving. Make certain that you have a conversation with them. Have you left the church in your estate plans? Would you like more information? And there are so many ways that we can structure gifts, planned gifts that give folks a lifetime income stream while making a generous donation to the church. There are great tax incentives to do this. TENS has some material and a training on planned giving, but there are lots of resources out there, particularly with the Episcopal Church Foundation, that can really help you build your planned giving ministry if you haven't dug into that yet. Let's take a look at our baby boomers, the next generation active and donating in our church. These folks are born between 1946 and 64. Now we notice that the statistics about participation, volunteer, and donation go down a little from our mature generation. That's, excuse me, that's interesting to note. 48% of them who are in church are donating. Likely they're moving into retirement assets. They've probably exited the workforce at this point, and so they are now living on retirement assets, and maybe they're adjusting their giving appropriately. And they are volunteering with our congregations. And the reason I put in the volunteer number in each of these generations is to show that we absolutely make complex pledges to our congregations that involve our time and our talent and our treasure, and that we want to have campaigns and messaging in our campaigns that are about all the ways that you use the gifts God has given you to give back to your church. So it's really important to acknowledge the number of volunteers we have and the number of ways that they make church possible for us. We'll go in later into detail, and TENS has an entire training on time and talent and doing campaigns that are attractive to that. It's really important for us to look at that number because volunteers make our church run. And as we see the younger folks, it's one of the things that makes church very attractive to them. More on that in a minute. So this generation, whereas our mature folks, they understood institution for what it was. Well, our baby boomers have lived through some scandals in government and corporate life, and they've seen they have more questions. They might want to look at the books or ask some more detailed financial questions before they're ready to make a gift. They want to know where the money's going, how it's being spent. This is great. We like when people ask us for information because it means they're engaged. We should have answers for them. Um, this generation may be starting to give from retirement assets. They may have had to adjust their giving from their income earning years. Be mindful of that. Adjust it. Don't be alarmed if you see some loyal members giving less. It doesn't mean they like you less. It means that they're living within their new means and their new reality. Absolutely, this generation has appreciated assets, uh, houses that have appreciated in value, stock portfolios, even in this weird economy that have appreciated in value. If you're doing things that are capital related, they can make tax-wise gifts to your capital campaign, offset capital gains taxes and all kinds of things if they make generous donations. So don't exclude them from your capital campaign. They have gifts to offer. And these folks should be in your pipeline for planned gifts. They should be looking at ways to maximize their retirement, to maximize their tax write-offs. And there are lots of ways that our planned giving up programs make tax-wise sense for our senior citizens. So let's make sure that we offer those. Before leaving our baby boomers, it's really important for us to remember that this is the wealthiest generation in recent times that we have. They are going to pass on an enormous amount of wealth to their children and grandchildren, and also to the other institutions in their lives that matter to them. And this is why I say planned giving is so essential, because their schools, the symphony, the zoo, arts organizations, um, other nonprofits in our area that they've been donating to for years, they are asking them to share their estate gifts. And when church doesn't, we miss that opportunity to allow them to have a lifetime of giving to the church. So please, please do some planned giving work with your baby boomers. Make certain that they have left the church in your estate plans and know what their options are. If you don't know how to run these programs, which is fine, you might not, your diocesan office can help you. And also the Episcopal Church Foundation, ecf.org. Great. They're a great organization that for free helps congregations set up these planned giving programs. Let's talk a little bit about Gen X, my generation, born between 65 and 76. Our Gen X folks are right in their prime earning years of their careers. And so they should be donating to your church. If they're there, they should be. But a lot of us aren't yet fully involved. How did we miss these pledge campaigns? Why aren't we as involved as we should be? It's a question we need to ask. So 56% of them are making gifts to their church. 50% will volunteer with the church. They're busy people, they have things to do, but they're probably starting to be empty nesters as well. So maybe their time is about to become more free. This is a great opportunity to talk with them about as they move into empty nesting, other things that they might want to be able to do with their time, that they're not driving kids to soccer practices and violin lessons and other things. This is where we begin to see the shift in volunteering starting the relationship with church versus church being the starting point. And what I mean by that is to say, not all folks who come to church are necessarily shopping for a church experience. Sometimes and often they're attracted by what we're doing in the community, the kinds of work that we're able to do, the gifts that we're able to share, that can be really important. And that is a way that they get in their mind that church is a place that they could go. And ultimately, they see that there are these people of faith doing these great acts of community service and want to join. So our Gen X folks are looking likely, again, empty nesting. They might be looking for volunteer opportunities. So your food pantry or your thrift store or your after-school tutoring program, your mentoring program, your daycare programs, your environmental cleanup programs, those kinds of things might be very attractive to some Gen X folks who suddenly have some time on their hands. We are even less trusting of institution than our parents, our boomer parents, because we have seen the scandals. We have seen CEOs be shackled. We've even seen weird things in our churches around finances. And so we have a lot of questions. We don't really trust that institutions are the best place. Sometimes we even have questions about our banks. So know that that doesn't mean that these people are off the radar. It means that you need to provide real transparency into your finances, have good answers to the questions that they ask, so that they understand that the dollar they give goes to the thing that they think it's going to, and that that makes sense. Always draw that line that every dollar goes to mission. These folks might not yet be ready to talk about planned gifts, but if they are, that's great. They're certainly able to make generous annual gifts because they're in their best income earning years, and perhaps they're done paying college tuition and things like that. So this is a great time to ask them to increase their annual giving while they have those resources available. And they also have probably stock options or other ways to have appreciated assets from which they can make generous capital campaign gifts. So if you're doing a capital campaign, think about your Gen X folks. They may not be willing to share their income assets with you, but rather their retained assets from stock portfolios or property or other investments. This generation is about to inherit $40 trillion in the next 15 years from their boomer parents and grandparents. This is an enormous amount of capital. And if they don't have a plan for it and churches aren't thinking about how they can begin forming our folks into becoming lifelong givers that are making planned gifts to our congregations, that are using all of their effort and energy to support our ministry, then we're going to miss out on this. This is a big loss for us. This second big transfer of wealth that we've had in 2 decades we are opening the door to that right now. So don't miss out on those gifts. Our millennial folks, let's talk about them for a little bit. 1977 to 1995. Uh, Look at this number. This is really interesting. 56% of them donating to church. That's more than their Gen X friends. 65% of them volunteering in church. This generation, while building their careers and building their families, they're also volunteering in your programs. You're likely seeing them teaching your Sunday school or showing up on events to do things, rolling up their sleeves. This generation is volunteering at a high level. This is good. It speaks to the kinds of engagement that our millennial folks have been raised in and want to participate in. We have these notions that they're just on their gaming machines and socially awkward, and that's not true. They are out in our communities, volunteering, making the world a better place, engaging with the world. So let's make certain that our churches offer volunteer opportunities to attract our millennial and our Gen Z members. They care what the church is doing in the community. This is one of the number one things that will make a determination whether they join and whether they donate to a congregation. What are you doing out in the community? Are you just paying your bills and keeping the lights on and not talking about faith and change and hope? Or are you out there trying to roll up your sleeves, engage your neighbors, do the work? Make certain that we message about impact, the impact of your gifts on your neighbors when you are talking to this generation. 89% of the folks in this generation are already donating to our nonprofit siblings. This says they are very generous. They're still building their assets. Perhaps they're starting to get those promotions and better jobs. They're also raising families and paying off debt. But they have money to share. They're very generous and they are giving to nonprofits. Make certain that your church is included in their giving portfolio. Our Gen Z folks, so they're born before 1996, and I love this first statistic. By 20 years old, 30% of them have made a donation to a nonprofit. At 20 years old, I was in college. I was not donating to nonprofits. Uh, this is a big shift for this generation. A lot of it because we have easy online tools now where they can make a $5 donation to a thing. It comes across their text message, they hit yes, and it's done. But that activity, that action, is repeatable and helpful and really shows that this generation gets the message. They might not have a lot of money yet to give, but they're being very generous. 97% of them have made an online gift for a charitable purpose at some point in their life. That's incredible. Again, online tools make this very easy, but the fact that they're responding, this could be, helping out a friend through a Kickstarter or a fundraising effort on Facebook or other things, but it could also be, their favorite nonprofit sends them a text message and they reply yes, and a donation is sent through their phone. Like our millennial friends, Gen Z wants to know that their work is making a difference. If they're going to invest their time, they want to see results for it. And they're going to want to see the church active. 76% of them are worried about the planet and want to see faith communities doing something about it. So if you're not talking about green efforts, that's even changing light bulbs and faucets and easy things that you can do in your church. You're not talking about those things. You're missing a part of the key thing that they are most worried about. And these are matters of faith, things that we talk about. As we give gratitude for all of God's creation, we want to steward it well. So make certain that we're incorporating those kinds of messages in our work and in our preaching and in our idea sharing. Um, a lot of our folks in Gen Z uh, don't write checks. Maybe they don't even use a whole lot of cash. They use their phones and the cards attached to their phones to make gifts. So apps and mobile giving is really important. And I'm seeing so many churches start adopting ways for people to make a gift immediately online within the church service, have a QR code in their bulletin or another way to easily link to your mobile giving. This is really important. So let our young members make gifts in the ways that they want to. This is called donor-centric fundraising, and it puts the ways that the donor wants to engage at the top and makes it easy for them to engage with you. If you only say we accept checks or cash and it has to be in a plate or an envelope, you're going to miss some people. For example, I'm not a Gen Z, but if I were to come to your church on this Sunday as a visitor and you asked you the plate went by me, I'd have nothing or very little to put in it because I don't carry cash. If I get cash out, I spend it on things. So I use my debit card or my phone to do a lot of my giving, a lot of my buying. And so that's really important for us to know that younger members may not be carrying cash and checks along with them. I had a beautiful, difficult conversation with a young woman a few years ago on why she didn't want to pledge to the campaign. And with some vulnerability, she shared that she didn't want another debt contract in her life. She didn't want the church to be something that she owed money to. She said, I have student loans, I have a car payment, I have other, credit card debt I'm trying to get out of. I don't want to sign on a line and have another debt contract. And, we had a little conversation about pledging and how that's not debt, but it felt to her like it was. And that's important for us to know that our younger members are dealing with a lot of debt and a lot of burden from that debt. And so they might not want to make a pledge, but they might also be very generous in their giving to church. So she said, this young woman said, I will continue to give to the church. I will use my phone. I'll use an app. If you ask me, I'll say yes. But she didn't want to commit to a number. This is going to happen more and more. Our younger members may not be filling out pledge forms. So this is a little note to us in church as treasurers, as stewardship leaders, that we might have to start adjusting our thinking about how we build our budgets, how we assume what our income is going to be, and start looking at trends and data rather than pledge forms. Because I think more and more our members are going to be telling us that they would rather engage in a different way. We don't have the whole proof of that yet, but let's be prepared for it as it comes. We need to prepare for our younger members because we have this idea that our millennial and Gen Z members aren't going to church. But that's not true. In the Giving USA 2023 report, and it was verified again in 2024, millennials are the most churched group in the United States. And this is a huge shift from 15 years ago when millennials literally coined the phrase none, None, when asked what their religious affiliation was. Now we have 45% of millennials who say they are in church every week or most every week. This is huge. And look at how it relates to our Gen X and our boomer friends. So millennials are coming to church and they're attending virtually as well in large numbers. Our virtual, if you're still doing, and I hope you are, still doing online services, still have that camera at the back of the church and someone to operate it, all that work we did in the pandemic, um, keep that going because millennials are engaging on their phones. Maybe they can't be there on a Sunday because they have to work or they have to do other things. They're catching the service later online. This is amazing. 30% of our millennials say they attend virtual services every week. That's huge. Note that, do that, understand that, and that trend is going to continue as millennials continue to be engaged and as Gen Z comes up in their attendance as well. Okay, so how do we prepare for our youngest members, who are the future of our congregations, to be ready to become disciples, to have lifelong giving relationships with our congregations? How do we encourage our millennial and Gen Z members to stay with us, support us, and have impact in the world? We're going to talk about 4 different areas in the next few minutes. We're going to talk about how we engage with the wider community. This is again that reminder that our younger generations want to see us out in the world, doing the work, changing our communities for the better. We're going to talk about how we increase volunteer engagement. We're going to talk about how we expect to raise money and some expectations, assumptions around that. And then we're going to talk about how we can make disciples out of our youngest members and ensure that they are getting the message and able to talk about that message to other people. One of the beautiful things about church is that we create storytellers out of our members because they hear story, they hear the gospel told to them in parables and in story form, and then they're able to model that back out to people and have that method. So teach that, because when we can talk about why we care about our church, our faith, our how it matters in our lives, how we're changing the world, if we can get those stories told, then we're sharing the faith. We're being evangelists, even when we don't like to use that word or think about that word. We're sharing the story, and that's what we want to do in discipleship. One of the first ways to make certain that we are engaging our millennial and Gen Z donors is to show them that we want the change in the world as well. Show them results. They want to know that they're giving, which is sacrificial at this point. They are giving their hard-earned dollars when they're trying to pay off debt and start families and do other things. They're making a real choice to support the church when they do so. We want to know, we want them to know and feel that their gift is really making a difference. Narrative budgets are a really good way of telling the story of how every dollar is spent on ministry. It's not going to these line items of salary and utilities and insurance and building, although money is spent on those things, we share it within our ministry category so they can see that this is how much it costs to run our children and family program. This is how much it costs to do our music and worship ministry. This is what our outreach, this is what our pastoral care costs. This is what, whatever your ministries are, however many you want to talk about, narrative budgets are great ways to draw that connection between dollars invested and impact achieved in your community. Help people to know that their giving is really doing the work of changing the world. Our youngest members they ask a lot of questions, and they have really good sense of when they're being deceived, or when people aren't sharing the whole story with them. They this has happened through their life experience, their young life experience. So make certain that when we preach sermons, they are honest. They are talking about the world as it is. Yes, we can cast in the vision of the new hope and the new Jerusalem and the city on a hill, but we also have to talk about what's happening in our communities, the things that are challenging us, the things that are scary, the experiences that they're having. So this means we have to engage science and have honest conversations about body and health and wellness. It means that we need to incorporate the headlines, but not be obsessed with the news that's coming out of them. We have to relate the gospel to the good news, to our lives, to what we can do about it. If we just preach about the headline, then we're engaging that doom loop that we don't want people to be in. We want to talk about what we can do with the news that we hear and how we can use that to motivate us to change our lives. We want to talk about whole and healthy relationships, boundary setting, and body positivity, and knowing that people are comfortable identifying how and who they are, and that our neighbors and our communities are accepting of that. These are messages that when we don't reinforce them with our preaching, they're noticed. So we want our members to hear themselves in the preaching, to understand that they're truly welcomed as they are, and that that is a part of our core value. Our 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 youngest members are hyper aware of that, and we want to make certain that we are appropriately prepared for that. The Methodists have been studying church architecture for a long time as it relates to young people. I'm so glad that they've invested the resources in this and made that investment, that report available to the rest of us. Because in talking about how to design worship spaces, they dispel some of the notions we may have had that younger people don't want churches that look like our churches. Our church buildings are what they are. They were built in a moment, and they might be made of stone or stained glass. They might be wood and different architecture shapes. The architecture is what it is, and we can't really change it, and we don't want to redress it, and we don't want to mess with it because we're learning that our youngest members actually want churches that feel like churches. They don't want blank community centers or empty walls. So the study actually posed the question, which of these altars are most appealing? And you can see how millennials responded. So this was a study for millennials only, four different images. Which one do you like most? And then they separated that out between everyone, and then they showed you the number that for people who are identifying as going to church, people who just maybe they were baptized and maybe just go to church when their grandparents are in town or whatever, and then people who say, no, I don't go to church at all. So they were asked to say which of these altars is most appealing to you. Now, if your church doesn't happen to look like any of these, that's fine. What we're saying here is you don't have to change it, but that you live with the architecture that you do, and that churches that look perhaps more traditional are the ones that our youngest members find homey, attractive, interesting. You have your community the way it is. If it looks a certain different way, it's up to you then to create those other warm experiences that make people feel at home. But that some of these traditional altars are in fact the ways that our young members like to see church. This is good information because we don't have to tear out our altars or hide them. We can embrace them and embrace our tradition for what it is. Our youngest members are tech natives. They're digital natives. They use this technology way better than the rest of us, and they've been using it for their whole lives. And so we need to know that they see when our technology is bad or clunky or doesn't work, and that distracts them from the experience. So we need to invest and perhaps ask them to help us get good on our tech. Know if we're going to use social media, for example, how to engage it appropriately so that it has headlines or taglines that are interesting and engaging. And it's not just Facebook, it's now Instagram, it's now Blue Sky, it's now all of them. So use them and ask your youngest members to help you build those social media profiles and share snippets of information, video better than still images, short, pithy, interesting video is what will attract them. If you have some screens in your church and you're using them to project your worship materials, that's great. A lot of congregations are doing that, and they're losing the printed bulletin. And that's maybe a green decision that they're making. That's great. Whatever it is, if you're going to have screens, make certain that they work, that they're on time, that they're well thought through. And again, our Methodist brothers and sisters have some really good resources on how to time your PowerPoint with the music, how to do this if you're going to do it well, how to create worship materials that don't, as the young people would say, make them feel cringe. So don't do that. Make them feel like it's a single, seamless uh, program. Our online tools and giving materials have built-in systems for retention. The number one goal of online giving is to help people understand where that money goes, how it's being spent, and give the church access to contact information, at least an email address and a name, so that they can do some further work on establishing or deepening that relationship. It also means that through recurring giving or other kinds of options that you might have open to you on your tech. It means that they can create that discipline, that regular gift, and it comes episodically, periodically as they select it out of their bank account or their debit card or whatever they're using to make a gift to the church. This is a beautiful tool. We really saw its benefit in the pandemic come up as people could select recurring giving as an option, and then that gift comes out every week or every month or on whatever schedule you set up. Retention is a built-in tool of online giving, and it really helps our congregations keep that steady cash flow. We don't hear about churches and summer slumps anymore when everyone went on vacation and the checks stopped coming in for 2 months. We don't hear about that because so many people use either automatic bill pay from their bank or recurring giving from an online way, and the money just keeps coming into the church account. This is great because those summer months were lean and we remember them, and we remember the treasurer saying, could you pay your pledge for a few months? We really are running out of money. And the pledges were there, the income was coming in, going to come in, but everyone would go on vacation and stop paying for a couple months. It doesn't happen anymore, or it happens with less frequency. And a lot of that is because we can create these retention strategies. I think the most important thing about being attractive to young members is our volunteerism. And later this year, TENS is going to have a webinar on time and talent, the other two T's, making sure that we are creating strategies that really emphasize that part of our giving strategy or our giving portfolio in church. Because time and talent is, I think, even more important than money. Here's why I say that. If you had to look at your budget and pay the people who volunteer their time to do your programs, from ironing linens to welcoming people to running a ministry or a program, if you had to pay them a living wage, you'd be paying them $33.40 an hour. That's according to the National Volunteers of America website. You'd be paying them $33.40 an hour to do this work. Can you afford $33.40 an hour for all the volunteers that work in your congregation to make your programs run? We really need to emphasize that volunteering, giving your time and your talent, is a really important part of the way that you engage with the ministry of your church. It's also building that emotional involvement, because volunteerism isn't done alone usually. There are some of us who love to volunteer when the church is closed, those altar guild people, perhaps, who love to go in on Saturday when the church is quiet and prepare everything. But most of us engage our volunteerism with others. And that is beautiful as well, because you're creating friendships, you're creating community, you're learning about people with like-minded interests. And so that emotional involvement also engages people. Please make certain, if you have volunteer opportunities that aren't like your Sunday school, for example, or a committee where you really need people to be members to do it. We're talking maybe your external ministries, like a food ministry or a environmental ministry or a social direct service ministry that you might do. Advertise those volunteer opportunities outside your church. It could be as easily as the bulletin board outside your church, but it's also on maybe neighborhood websites or neighborhood newsletters. If you're only offering volunteer opportunities to your members and advertising in your own bulletin that we need volunteers to show up to do this thing, then you're not engaging any new people into your community who could become members through your volunteer efforts. Okay, that means that we might want to do some screening of our volunteers if we're going to open the doors outside to other people. We can have a standard set of questions that we ask, or a trial period where we understand, or maybe some boundaries about you can do this, but not that if you're not a member. But whatever it is, create some ways that outside members can learn about volunteer opportunities, because that is the way our young members, that is almost the number one way, right there tied with, I was raised in this church and I keep coming back. The next message from our youngest members is, I learned that they were doing something in the community that I wanted to be a part of. And that got them started. So they'll come on Saturday long before they come on Sundays. This is okay. Let them come, let them learn about you, let them see that your faith motivates you to change the world and that you have real volunteer engagement, and then build them into discipleship and start to introduce Sunday services to them and understand that that's a next part of their journey should they want to take it. I can't underscore enough that I think volunteerism is the best way for our churches to accomplish our work in the world and to engage our younger members and meet them where they are. Don't forget about discipleship, that we are not just asked to support our congregation, but that Great Commission asks us to make disciples out of all nations, to preach the message, to teach the message, to get people so excited about what they are doing at church that they want to invite others, that they want to share that message with others, that we are really creating people who have deep relationship with faith and church. We do that through formation. Lots of avenues into it. Some of us love contemplative, intellectual approach. Some of us love getting our hands dirty and seeing that the work is in the mission is in the work. Whatever it is, wherever you are, have strategies that help people deepen their faith, because when they become deep in faith, they stay rooted and planted and giving off that great energy and invitation to others. So do this, create those one-on-one relationships in church, create those discipleship moments, create lifetime members. Our young people have lots of questions. God bless them for their questions. 11% of millennials say they don't believe in God, and 32% say maybe God exists, maybe God doesn't exist. They're still coming to church. Have you ever engaged a young person who's like, I'm not really sure about this, but I'm here. I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to participate. Maybe I'm getting something else out of the service right now. This quiet time, the beautiful music, just sitting in a pew. We don't know why people are there unless we ask them. And their questions are fine. In fact, those questions that we might not think to ask because we've been so steeped in faith that we don't ask them anymore, or we don't expect others to ask them. These are great questions. They're telling us that people are engaged, that they want to know. So have good answers to complex issues. Talk about them, and also understand that some uncertainty is okay, because our young people live with a lot of uncertainty. Question asking is normative. And so they don't have to have full information in order to be present. None of us does. But I think this is becoming more normative with our younger generations. It's not to say don't have information for them. It's to say encourage them to keep asking questions. If any of you have ever been through godly play, led godly play as a Sunday school, you know that questions are encouraged, and that the storyteller engages questions with questions. When a kid says, why is this? The answer back to them is, I wonder, why is this? And it's engaging that way. We don't have hard hard and fast answers for a lot of things because they are very deeply personal. And what we want is people to make their own connection to their faith journey. Question asking is normative. Let that be in your congregation. It's a really great strategy to keep younger members engaged. This comes from the Pew Research study on religious landscape and how our younger members affiliate with that. Diversity is a hallmark of our youngest generations. They're more diverse than other generations that precede them. They are in school, in work, in community organizations that they're a part of. They see more people who are not like them and haven't been raised in their same experience. And that is a really important distinction about our millennial and Gen Z members. 43% are non-white. This is different from our older members of our society. We're seeing more and more people coming in through immigration and through relationships and how they are engaged in the world. Our churches need to mirror this diversity as much as they can. We need to raise up leaders who look like our members, who represent the constituencies or the people that our members are. And when we don't see that in the leadership, there's a disconnect with people who feel that way, who identify that way. So make certain that we are doing, and it takes more work often to change our outreach policies to really reach folks who are diverse and raise them up, because there might be other barriers in society that they're encountering that we also have to help them get through as a church. So know that and adopt some strategies and learn that diversity is really important to our youngest members. They see when it's out of balance. There is so much negativity in our world, in our society these days, not just from the news headlines, but social media is full of the ways that everything is terrible. Yes, there's joy and humor and life as well. There's good stuff happening, but there's a lot of focus on negativity and a lot of attraction to it. If you want, I love true crime, for example, but then sometimes I'm like watching these things. I'm like, why have I spent 2 hours on an evening watching about murders? This is not helpful to me. Maybe I should be learning about something else. Um, so, we have a society that's focused on sort of horrific acts of humanity. We're looking at a lot of these. A lot of our youngest members don't feel that leaders can be trusted. In fact, the majority don't feel that they're leaders. That's government, church, school, business, can be trusted. That's a scary statistic. So we need to be optimistic. We need to show them that church is a place where we do encounter reality, absolutely, but we also have a hope, we have a vision, we have a plan, we have a way to move forward. We want change in the world. We're working for change in the world, and that is what is keeping us going. That promise that all shall be well, that we will engage the mission, that Jesus is still leading us, we are still on this path. That is an attractive message. Let our optimism shine through. Younger members are hyper aware of politics and it plays into everything, their social media, their school experience, their early work experiences. Yet half of our millennial and Gen Z members claim to have no party affiliation. Independence is an attractive notion. This is to say that they believe in ideas over adherence to ideology. This is a general statement, but this is really important for us to say that there are fewer lines in the sand, or the lines in the sand are different than they are than just party affiliation or politics. National politics, faraway politics aren't helpful. They grab headlines. There's very little we can do about the things that are happening in Washington, other than voting and perhaps demonstrating as we need to. But a lot of those are beyond our control. And where we can have influence is in our local communities. And so we need to remember that churches, while they can't engage in political candidates, they can engage in local issues. And in fact, we should. When there is a proposal on your local ballot about housing or um, community support or homelessness or investing in resources in some way, and it matches the values of your congregation, you should be mobilizing your members on getting excited about that, joining local efforts to promote that. We also, like, we need one more committee meeting to go to, but we should go, or members of our community should go to local school board meetings, city council or county council meetings. We should go to represent or at least listen to what's happening in our structures so that we can report back and know how to fully engage what's being said. Do we have a position on what the school is teaching or doing or saying or not doing? Maybe we want to send some members to a meeting to represent that. Be engaged in your local politics because that's where you get noticed by new members. It's also where you can have the most impact on seeing your values represented locally. Local politicians get far fewer votes than federal ones. And so if 20 members of a congregation or 40 members of a congregation say, we're looking at this issue and it matters to us, they're paying attention because these are constituents, these are people who are in their demographic and their neighborhood. So pay attention to local politics. They're far more appealing, easy to engage for our younger members, and they're also much more likely to be focused on optimism rather than sort of the hopelessness that we feel about our federal politics so often. We're wrapping up here on things to do to make our congregations attractive to our youngest members. Uh, if your website is still early days of the web, where it just gives information and not a way to engage, you're still missing that piece. Include some video testimonials from people, include social media so that you can actually have dialogue. And even though dialogue can sometimes get scary or out of hand, you have community moderation tools built into your social media. So you can always protect your members or protect your values from people who are trying to do harm to it. But you can foster positive community support and conversation when you use social media the right way. So if you're going to use these social media tools, ask some millennial and Gen Z members to help you set them up, help you set boundaries around them, keep them updated as well. So a lot of congregations have a Facebook page that hasn't been updated in a long time. A lot of congregations have a website where the front page is the same as it was 10 years ago. It might be time to change it up and make sure that all that information is still relevant and that you're showing your people. The number one complaint I have about church websites is that their homepage shows a picture of their church. Maybe from a distance, maybe so you can see the whole thing, or maybe it's close up. But I'm like, it's a building. It's a beautiful building, but it's a building. The church is the people. Show your people and what they're doing and how they're engaged and the life that's there. That's more attractive than your even the most beautiful church building. So make certain that your website shows you. You can have pictures later on, deeper in the website about your building and how great it is. But your first image should be people engaging with each other or doing something in the world, or your members being members. Think about that. do some work on that. Take a look at the message that you are doing. And if we all have that pile of clutter that we overlook, and our websites are often like that. We've seen it so many times, we forget what might be wrong with it. So ask your friend who's never looked at your church website before, will you take a look at it and tell me like the 8 things you hate about it? And then I'll have some new information, right? So just help people do that. It's really, we should be looking at our messaging often. I talked earlier about donor-centric fundraising, meeting our donors, our members, where they are with their giving. And this is a really important way to continue engaging our youngest members, especially as they're looking to diversify ways that they might give. Online and mobile apps are great, and you should have them and implement them and know how to use them. You should have your church website should have a way for people to make a donation and even fill out a pledge form or things like that so that you can have a virtual campaign. If they don't get the letter or they don't, some of us don't respond to mail that comes, but we do respond to emails. Make certain that there's a way electronically to do all of that work. And you have to have paper copies too. So have them at the back of the church or send out that mailing or whatever you're doing to engage your members. It's a both and digital and paper. Um, have instructions on how to give by bill pay or electronic funds from your bank. So that means that you might have to write up a little list of this is how you do it. This is how you set it up with your bank. If you want to make a gift in this way, so that when people ask, you can say, here's the instruction sheet. Go for it. Rather than saying, well, I'll get back to you next week or whatever, just have that ready, have it emailable. Your treasurer can send it out when somebody says, this is how I'd like to make my gift. Same on how to give securities. If somebody says, I'd like to make a donation of some stock at the end of the year to pay off my pledge. Say, absolutely, here's how we do it. If you don't have a brokerage account that you're already using in your congregation to sell stock and put it into your account, ask your diocese on how to do that. Your diocesan CFO or finance office will have a method for that, whether it's theirs or one they suggest for you. Do that. I know in the Diocese of California, where I am, for example, if a congregation doesn't have its own brokerage account with Fidelity or Charles Schwab or whatever, they can just have the diocese sell that stock on their behalf and send them the check. Works pretty well. So you can absolutely have a way for people to give appreciated stock. Make certain that there are instructions on how to do that. Our retired members giving from retirement accounts get a big tax deduction if they can give a qualified charitable donation, distribution right from their retirement account into your church account. Make that possible, make that happen, let people know how they can do that. That is a tax-wise way for people to complete their gift. And don't forget on your pledge card to ask if they have left the church in their estate, if they'd like more information on how to make a planned gift or why planned giving is important. It's one of those soft asks that we just have to repeat it. Keep asking for people to think about planned giving options so that they can put it on their, just have it on the pledge card. I've made a gift to my church in my estate. I'd like more information about how to do that. We have some webinars. If you go to our webinar library on virtual giving, we look at all the common platforms and rate them for you, talk about what their transaction rates are, what their pros and cons are. So if you are looking to make a change in your donation platforms, take a look at that. Might be helpful to you. I want to end by reminding you that TENS has a complete ready to go material set for your 2025-26 pledge campaign. This year, our theme is Tell Out My Soul. And we're talking about that good news that you have inside you that you want to share with the world, that you can't wait. It's bursting out of you. That story of connection to your mission. And so we have materials which include pledge cards, which include sample letters from your clergy and wardens and committee members, which include liturgical resources like prayers of the people to use during your campaign or prayers for the offertory, and a thank you letter sample. We also have weekly reflections. We have 11 of them. So if you have a long campaign, you have 11 different reflections to choose from that kind of relate how the Holy Spirit is calling people to tell their story. This year, we're focusing on creativity, on art, music, sculpture, writing. So people who are inspired to tell their story through other kinds of media, uh, use those as inspirational starting points for the conversation on stewardship in your congregation. And that's available to you. It's free to donate or to download. It is online and ready to go. That's what I wanted to share with you today, and we've been talking for quite a while. I'm going to stop talking for a moment, and I'm going to ask you what questions you might have. I'm going to pull us back into our group here. What questions you might have about what we've covered today, and anything related to millennial and Gen Z attraction, or if you have other random general stewardship questions, now's the time to chat about it. Lovely to see you all. Thanks for listening. What are your questions? Somebody's got to start. Jennifer.
Hi. I was wondering if um, you had any experience or advice if we were combining a, a campaign. So, doing like some capital campaign work with doing some stewardship, especially for younger people.
Yes. So I think that a blended campaign, uh, as it's called, is a great way to do campaigning. If you're doing a capital campaign, don't separate it from the annual campaign if you don't have to. I know a lot of congregations like will do annual in the fall and then capital in the spring because they want them to be as far away, but people people see through that right away. They're like they know how their money comes, and they understand that. So if you have this opportunity where you're already doing maybe face-to-face asks for your capital campaign, including your annual fundraising in that, makes so much sense, and it just makes it easier. And your campaigner, your ask committee, whoever is on that, or the letter that you're writing, or however you're engaging your campaign, we can talk more about that if you have specific questions. Um, Acknowledges we'd love for you to make your annual gift. If you can make it at or above last year, we ask for that. That's the first ask, because that's the most important. We don't want them to sacrifice their annual gift to make a capital gift, because their annual giving is so important. It's the tradition and history. And then we'd like you to take a look at this capital gift. It's above and beyond your pledge. It's time limited. Maybe you're doing a 2-year or a 5-year payment for it, so it's not permanent. If you can make this stretch, we're asking for that. You already have their attention, and you can talk about the whole thing is talking about mission and ministry, right? So your annual gift is about funding the mission, and your capital gift is about growing the mission. Even if it's a capital campaign that's about infrastructure, new roofs or furnaces or things like that, it's enabling you to do ministry and to set yourself up for success in the future. You're focused on the mission and the ministry. It's a great way to do it. And if you can make a little plug for an annual planned gift as well, there are lots of ways to do that. A fully blended campaign to say, here is the giving portfolio of ways you can engage our congregation and different levels of generosity and ways you can engage. We don't want you to walk away empty-handed here. I really love a blended campaign, and I find them to be really successful. We have this mythology that if you raise money for capital, it's going to lower the annual gift, and that just never happens. It doesn't play out like that. In my own finite head, I think, well, how could I possibly? But I'm being asked to make a second above and beyond gift. And if that language is really clear, then my annual gift doesn't diminish. I give what I can to the capital campaign as well. So congratulations on doing capital work. It's so important. Try a blended campaign. This is a good year for an every member canvas, where you get out there and you reach everyone, and do face-to-face asks. Charles, you have some wisdom for us. Come on off mute.
I apologize. I was late getting on today at a conflict and being on to 12:30. So if you mention this, please correct me. But I found for welcoming newcomers, I believe you need to have a strategy for that. At St. Thomas's Church, when I was pastor, at 7:30 in the morning, I was on the front porch above 20 degrees, welcoming everybody to church. And when the bishop came, the bishop was out there at 7:30 vested before the 8 o'clock service. 9:30 in the morning, same thing, vested, and we just march in at 10 o'clock. That way, when a new person came, they felt welcomed. They met my associate and me, the greeters. And also we found helpful after church is to have somebody from the greeting committee stand next to me. Because normally the friendlier your church is, the harder it is for a newcomer to go to hospitality hour. I don't call it coffee hour, because why would a woman with 2 kids who drinks tea go to coffee hour? We offer hospitality. And would have a person standing next to me and say, "Oh, Jill, so great to have you here today. Carol here will take you over to hospitality hour." Carol knows everybody, and Carol introduces her to other people, so they feel very comfortable that first time. Also, we found helpful was to have in the back of the program the visiting form. No little cards, the whole back of the program listed the vestry and the visiting card. How to become part and learn more about the church. So we found those very helpful things. And when people filled them out, as past director, I would call them the next day and welcome them. Now, you get a lot of answering machines. But the point is, when they come home from work, they hear a message from me welcoming them to the church and inviting me to come to meet with me or go visit them. That worked quite often. But that sense of hospitality and welcoming is so important.
Charles, thank you for sharing your years of wisdom about that, and also for reminding us that hospitality should be built into our plan here. It's the way to engage members, and having a thought out newcomer strategy is really important. Some people spending some time saying, what are the levels? When do people get information? How do we incorporate them? There's a process so that it's not just happenstance, but that people, when they come and they fill out that form, they get that call, and then maybe 2 weeks later, they get an invitation to join the newsletter, and maybe 2 more weeks later, they get a specific invitation to join something. Have a process. Electronic media allows us to do this even easier than having to rely on post or phone calls and answering machines, voicemails. I don't pick up my phone for a number I don't recognize. So, we do that these days. So
One,
find the way. Yeah, Charles.
one final thing is, please change your website for summer services.
Yes, put those new times on.
I've checked websites and gone to church and found out I was at the wrong time.
Yeah, nothing. And I hate that when somebody's like, I'm a visitor and I looked at your website and it's completely off. I'm like, that was a fail. You still have your Christmas services up and you forgot to put Easter up. It's also a good indication. It's time to change that. Thank you, Charles. great information and thinking about how to incorporate new members. Laura typed into our chat while we were going about strategies to get time talent pledges from your youngest members. And we're talking about teens, tweens, and elementary school kids. And then she also asked about strategies to overcome donor fatigue. I would love to talk about both of those. So getting our youngest members involved with time, talent, and treasure is, I think, a really important piece of early formation. There should be, and in many places it is, a part of our Sunday school curriculum where there's maybe some volunteer component. We're going to do a project not just for us or for your parents, but for the church. And that's a great, easy, early way to say, we're going to paint the garden fence, or we're going to clean up the fountain, or we're going to do something that says we're giving back to the church. And then as they get older, you can start to leave the church property. We're going to clean up all the trash on our street. We're going to engage, in other ways that we can be visible and out there, and draw that connection early on, that church is a place where we get the message that our community matters, and that's then the place that we develop community, friends to go with us and do that work in the world. So start small and start easy, but be consistent. If we only do one volunteer activity a year, we don't get the message in that this is something that's a part of church. Whenever we create volunteer opportunities, it's work for us. I get that, because we have to envision it, we have to make it interesting, we have to supervise it, we have to be there to train for it, we have to provide materials and support. It's its own kind of ministry. And it creates lifelong disciples when we really get that message right. So start small. I also think that, when the Sunday school program can do some special fundraising for a thing, maybe there's a particular church ornament that needs to be purchased, and the Sunday school can collect money either from themselves, or even better, if they can ask people to make a small donation for this, or to support this local nonprofit, or, small gifts. They don't have to be hundreds of thousands of dollars. They can be, we sent $100 to this homeless family program that works with kids because our kids wanted to give back. Christmas drives with schools or homeless organizations that have families, also really a good way to get kids. You made a list for Santa. Other kids who don't have a home are also making a list. How can we help them get gifts? This is a great way to understand how to start giving back, and just create those touch points throughout the year. And they get more interesting as you get older, and more community focused, and the stakes get higher, right? You're raising more money to do more things. I think it's really important that we do time, talent, and treasure campaigns for our kids. Coming up soon with tens will be a ride along godly play story that talks specifically about stewardship. The godly play folks have given us permission to create a story, and so we're going to be rolling that out so that there can be a component of, if you're using that Montessori based Sunday school curriculum in your congregation, there will be a tool and a story that goes along with it that you can tell about stewardship. You also asked Laura about strategies to overcome donor fatigue, and it's real. People are, they can become maxed out and feel diminishing returns, or just feel like, I'm just going to say yes to this, but I'm not going to increase. I'm not going to think about it. And you can start to see that when you're looking at donor trends. If the same family has been making the same gift for 5 years, you know perhaps that some fatigue is happening. Maybe it's time to reach out to them to say what it, maybe it's time for a chat. What matters to you about this church? This is all relational, right? This is the relationship part of stewardship where it's not just transactional. We send a request and people send us a form. No, this is the relational piece where we say, what really matters to you about this church? Here's what we're trying to do. Uh, how can you be a part of it? What would you like to know more about? And you don't have to say because we think your giving is bad or we're worried that you're fatigued. You can come up with other ways to engage them on that that thing inside them that is connecting to the mission. You can also suggest other ways to volunteer because often if we increase our time and talent, we raise our treasure as well because we get a little bit more invested. And so it's a time to say, here are some interesting activities that you might want to join. When I'm doing pledge campaign follow-up, and I send that first email saying, we missed your pledge form. We're looking for it. If you were planning on making one, we're looking at by this date, whatever. But the next email, the one a week later that still acknowledges that we haven't received any paperwork, starts to talk about other ways to engage. We have a book group that meets, we've got a potluck that happens, there's a cinema group, there's a games night, and it maybe stops talking about money and starts talking about here are the other things that are happening in our church, and we'd love to start seeing you at them. And again, just saying, let's not acknowledge for a moment that maybe your giving is plateaued. Let's increase your faith and your engagement, and see if the money follows. And try some strategies around that. So those are a few ways that I have. Laura, I wonder if there are any um, follow-up questions you have about that or other strategies you've tried and haven't succeeded with yet or ideas?
Oh, this is the first year I'm the stewardship chair for our church, and so I really am coming in as a complete newbie, so I'm not really sure I have much good advice to share with the group yet, but maybe if you ask me the question next year, I might have a little bit more to contribute to the group.
I will. But you know what? You're already ahead of the game by asking that question. So good for you. I think you're going to be a great stewardship chair. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What other questions or member conversations would you like to have?
I got a question.
Yeah, Tom.
Yeah, this is focused, a lot on attracting younger donors, and there's been some good ideas for it. But another thing, more basic that we're looking for is new ideas to get younger folks, in the door in the first place or interested in the church, in the first place. Like, it doesn't have to be just millennials and Gen X, but all the way to Gen Z.
Right.
Is there resources for that for ideas to attract new folks, or worry about the donations later, but like just get them interested to begin with?
Yeah, well, I hope that some of the things I said today about volunteer engagement was helpful to you because I think that's the number one thing that churches are doing. We're doing work in the world, and we need to invite people into that, which also means that we need to increase the number of volunteer opportunities that we have so that we can prepare for that. But I think that that is one of the best strategies to being attractive to new people is to show them that we mean business, that we are out there, we are doing the change, we are making it happen in our communities, and we are talking about it. We also have to talk about that back in church. So bring the stories of impact back into your congregation. Let people know that, we fed 1,200 people last year and that this really mattered and that their gifts made that possible. and remind them and thank them for the fact that their time, talent, and treasure made that possible. I think the other oh, Charles, I know what you're going to say. Oh, I think I know what you're going to say, but say it.
Well, the stewardship message should be done all year, highlighting, thanking people, thanking people, thanking people for the ministry, different ministries in the church. I think that's really important. But also, I think that if you invite your neighbor to church, your neighbor's going to go to your website and see what your church is like. So your neighbor will go to church with you, but already have a picture of what to expect. And that's why websites are so important, because they will tell them what to expect when they come to your church.
Yeah, for sure. People can get a real and that's a good reminder, Charles. And Tom, I would take that also that your social media, your website should show a real vision of who you are and what you're doing. Um, a friend of mine was asking about Episcopal churches in a city I didn't know anything about. So I started looking around at Episcopal churches. I looked at their websites, and she was asking, I'd like to go try one. What's a good one? And I was looking to see if maybe I could be of any help. And I went to one congregation, and the whole first thing of their website, first page, was like all these rules that they had and what they believed and what they didn't believe and what they wanted people to behave like. I was like, oh, don't go there. Don't go there because they have all these boundaries, right? And then the one that they were really excited about was like the one that showed like pictures of their work and people like, standing behind a line giving soup and people who were like planting flowers in a garden. And it showed not like, here's the list of behaviors. If you want to come visit, this is what we do. But here's a list of activities that we do. And if you want to come visit, this is what we do. So it was a totally two websites, two totally different of experiences. And so what you put on that website might be deeply theological and mean a whole lot to the people who wrote that copy. But you have to think of it as marketing. You have to think of it as your first impression on folks and give them a real insight into who you are and what you're doing. It's a great way. We shouldn't forget that. People no longer use yellow pages. They do Google searches to find church and they will find you. It's a good way to do it. The other, Tom, the number one, no, I said the number one way was in volunteer engagement. The number two way is invitation. And understanding that welcome and invite are two different words for a reason. We can be welcoming, we can have everything ready for them, but we also need to invite people, and that's active. So that means that you and your members need to be formed in that, trained in that, feel good about it. And you don't have to be like the knocking on people's door of kind of evangelist. One person, invite one person a year to come and join your congregation. That's all congregation needs. If lots of people invited one person and got them hooked, churches would be growing. So think about really what does it take for your members to feel okay about wanting to invite people to church, feel good about what they're doing, that they have a story to tell about it.
Okay.
Thanks, Tom, for that question. And thanks for doing this work. This is the future.
Yeah.
Well, friends, we are at our time, and I'm really happy that you spent this time with me on a Saturday. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the gifts that you have and the work you're doing in your community to tell the story. I want to remind you that as TENS members, you have access to all of our upcoming webinars and the entire library of our resources, our webinars, and this year's annual campaign, which you can download on our website. Our next webinar is June 14th, and we're specifically talking about time and talent, how to create holistic stewardship campaigns. So look at our website, tens.org, and go to our webinars page and sign up for that. We'll be specifically talking about volunteer engagement and what volunteerism does for people and for communities and how to get more into that work. So join us for that. And in the meantime, I'll send you this recording and the slide deck so that you all have access to it and you can share it with other folks. Blessings on your Saturday and your Eastertide, and thank you, thank you, thank you for all you do. Goodbye, friends.
Thank you. Bye.